Hello, Mary Meet. So this is going to be sort of like a video response to Dancing Rabbit on his video about Sylvia Brown from the pagan perspective. But it's not really about her, so it's more a video about its own thing, but it was inspired by his video. And it's basically a video about what cold reading is, or more, how should I put it? Let me more explain. In his video he speaks about how many of the people he has been reading tarot with uh, made it a very dynamic process. They would ask the customers questions and talk with them through the process, and it could be seen as cold reading. And I realized that, yeah, definitely it could be seen as cold reading. But at the same time, I felt like I wanted to reply because, in many ways, this is how I read the tarot. I can, of course, just get a question from somebody online or so on, do a reading on it, not have any feedback, and I usually do pretty well. But the way I prefer to read is having the person I'm reading for sitting there, so I can have a dynamic process back and forth with them to find a way to give the best advice. But to me, a tarot is not so much a tool to impress somebody with my psychic gift, but a way to give practical, useful advice. And when I do it like this, it's a bit of the information I get, basically thing I get from them as I talk. Yeah, sure it is. And it can be things that my mind picks up, but that I don't pick up consciously, but that shows up in my reading. Like I can hear that I perhaps sounds a bit uncertain about something, and so I might not really notice that, but my mind notices it, so that I add that up, and it might not be a psychic thing, but more about being observant. Sure, but for me, divination is many parts. It's one part divine inspiration, the psychic, the supernatural, if you want, the magical. But one part of it is also basically reading a person, using these tools to get good, to be able to get out good advice for either their life now, their life in the future, basically how their lives can be better. And I think that as such, and is that cold reading? Well, in a way, yeah, it is. Because I do get, excuse me, I go nuts when they don't hang properly. In a way, it is. I work very much with intuition, and intuition doesn't just pick up things from supernatural sources. They also pick up things around you from people's reactions and so on and so forth. And I think it's here a very important difference between whatever or not you are trying to prove the existence of psychic ability, because then of course you cannot do it the way I'm telling it I prefer to do it. Because then you want as little information as possible, you want as little contact between the reader and the subject as possible, because what you want to see is that they have no other sources of information than their own psychic ability. Because then you are trying to prove this, and for some people that's the important thing. For me, however, when I read, usually the important thing for me is using this tool to the best of my ability. And I feel that my readings get better when I can have an open communication with the one I'm reading for. And some people might then say, but then it doesn't have anything to do with psychic ability. You might have use of it, but it could be just that you are very observant. And yeah, I mean, I have atheist friends who've seen me read and have no problem with it. You get good results. You are amazingly good at getting to the root of problems with this. And but I don't think there's anything supernatural involved. I don't know. I think it's a mix. I think it's one part psychic intuition, one part getting answers from the gods, from the universe, wherever you believe you get this from. One part what I read of them, what you would normally call cold reading, uh, and one part the cards themselves, the archetypes and symbols. I think it's a mix of all of this that gives the results. So it very much depends what are my goals with the reading. Am I is my goal to try to basically convince somebody about the existence of psychic ability? Then of course I would not want the client to sit next to me and answer my questions and work back and forth with them like that. However, when I use the cards as a tool, I want that back and forth because I feel that is an important part in using it as a tool for advice, for basically digging down. For example, I might get a card and I might say, so you started, I can see here that you might be starting some new project. Is it perhaps a business you're starting? And say, yeah, and there are other cards here that indicates that you have some monetary issues with this. Could could there be something to this? Yeah, and I might say, talk a bit back and forth, and I might see that there are some court cards that indicate that might be advisable to lend money from family, and I might say, yeah, I can see that there might be. Is there perhaps family that you can lend money from? But then I can say, but give more advice around that. Basically, have a communication back and forth. And sometimes they say, nah, I don't really have a family like that. And I say, yeah, but I see that there's some people that might be older than you. Is there perhaps older friends that you might bring in as partners for your new project? Basically, working a bit back and forth on that. And then the psychic intuition is there's somebody close to you that you might be able to use, basically have some partnership with, or somehow can help with the monetary. And then go back and forth around that, basically using this as a way to dig down to the issue and use it to bring advice. However, if I were going to take part in, for example, a test to see can I pick up things psychically, then I wouldn't want the client in the room. I would just want the question, my deck, and read that. Only that. So I mean, it's a very different. When I normally read, I'm not there to impress you. I am more. I'm using this as a way to give advice. And I mean, I don't know how the tarot works. Like I said, I know atheists that use the tarot. I say that it's a great way to sort of use psychologically, that it's a psychological tool. Might be. I mean, like I've said to a few atheists a few times, I don't care why. And they said, but perhaps it's just the placebo and your healing works. Okay, as long as it works, I'm happy. And I have a bit the same thing about reading, that as long as I can give advice that gives meaning to people, I don't really care if I picked it up by observing them, if I picked it up by observing the cards, or picked it up just by intuition, as long as I can give advice that helps. And I think there's a very big difference between using a combination of this and doing cold reading as a way to try to get money from people and lie. I mean, the same with, do you get generic results? Yes, sometimes I do. I mean, I read a friend of mine the other day, and what I got was, oh, generic. I mean, it was That's what I honestly got. Was it right? Yeah, it was correct. But it was so generic. So yeah, sometimes you get generic answers. But of course, I do also realize that those are not impressive. Those cannot be used for any kind of proof. However, getting generic answers doesn't mean that you are trying to trick anyone, especially since I don't charge for reading. At least not yet. So the point is, what we normally see as cold reading, that's when somebody is trying to convince somebody else that they are psychic and is then making generic statements that could fit for everyone. For example, you live near water. Everyone lives near water. You have some problems in your life. Everyone has some problem in your life. You have some problems with somebody of the opposite sex. Chances are you have a problem with somebody of the opposite sex. It could be a partner, it could be someone at work. There's so many such statements that's true for absolutely everyone. However, getting those things up in a reading doesn't necessarily mean that you're trying to cold read them, because I mean that they are generally true for everybody means that they will also show up in true readings very often. But the point is, when somebody is cold reading, they're putting on a show. However, when I am doing my readings, which is very much a collaboration between the client and me, that isn't cold reading. So I never say, I know all the answers to your life. I say, I can do what I can to give you good advice using the tarot. But you have to take everything I say with a grain of salt. Even the best readers are not 100% sure, and I am not the best reader. So, and I think that's what I reacted to in Dancing Rabbit's video. And I'm not saying anything negative about him. I really admire him and so on. But was that he sort of presented that these people that do read like I do, working with the client back and forth, that they are necessarily cold reading, necessarily putting on a show. It's just entertainment. And I don't agree. Of course, it could be that for them, I don't know these people. But there's a lot of really, really good tarot readers that do it the way I do it. Basically working in a collaboration with the client. I feel that the tarot is, can it be just a divination tool, just a way to get psychic knowledge? Yes. But I think, for me at least, it works best when it is a way to give advice, a way to basically, it can give information on the future, it can give information on the past, but it can also be a way to learn about yourself. And I feel that a very important part of for the client to learn about themselves is to be part of the process. And that doesn't mean that, I don't consider myself to be fake. I don't take money for it. What reason would I have to do it? Like I said, I'm not then trying to impress anyone. I'm just trying to help. So, yeah, I guess that's my point. My method when I usually read like that is not going to convince a skeptic, because it is a collaboration between me and the one I'm reading for. Because, like I've said, I think that the information I get through this is one part psychic, basically getting psychic information, and also one part what I observe, with which I don't necessarily pick up with my conscious mind, but sometimes I even do pick it up with my conscious mind. And it is a way to then dig deeper using the archetypes of the tarot and getting to the root of the problem, so that the problem the client is having can be dealt with. So one part psychic ability, one part psychology, one part intuition. And but I can read too with just getting, this is the question, nothing more. read the cards, and of course that's much more impressive. And I do that at times when I read people on the internet and so on. But for me, I think it's more helpful to, when I'm using it like that, to use it as a way to give advice. And I think my point with the video is that not all of us that do ask the client questions along the way and so on do it to put on a show, to do cold reading, to trick anyone. Very often it is as a way to use the tarot as a tool for the client's spiritual and personal development more effectively by involving them in the process. And while that might not be as impressive as just getting a question and reading it without looking at anyone, it doesn't mean that there's trickery involved or that it's just for entertainment purposes. I think that, I won't say that what's the best method to use the tarot, I mean that's personal, but I think that the method of asking the client, involving them, is a very useful method to use the tarot as a tool for giving advice and solving life problems and self-development. So yeah, that was my video response. And I did really like a video, as I usually like the videos on the pagan perspective, and I especially like your videos, Dancing Rabbit. So have a great day, and blessed be.